All right, we are 12:30 bang on the dot. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll kick off now because I know you guys have all got busy days. Thank you very much for joining the future of cybersecurity today. A very grand title, and we hope by the end of this session you'll agree with what we've got to say. All right. To start with, I'd like to introduce myself. So I'm Terry Chapman. I'm the Managing Director of Axenic.
And I'm Ahmed Lashmawi. I'm the Consulting Practice Lead at Axenic.
And Sam O'Brien. I'm the Director for Archer Asia Pacific and Japan. Based over in Sydney, but a pleasure to be with you all today.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Ahmed.
Everybody, welcome to our session, and welcome to 2022. And geez, where to start? A lot of challenges that we all continue to work through, a lot of obstacles to navigate, roadblocks and speed bumps otherwise. But I think if I look at the environment that we operate today, there are several tenets that really make it up. One, looking back on the last few years of the pandemic, and now this sort of post-pandemic period that we gradually emerge into. One of the takeaways is that disruption is constant. We're living in a time, in a period with multiple overlapping crisis events. You know, not just working with the pandemic here in the east coast of Australia, at least. We've had significant weather issues over the last 6 months. Everybody's been infected by supply chain challenges, and now, of course, we move into a new phase dominated by inflation and economic challenges to work through. And this is all amidst a broader context of the climate obstacles that we need to work together on as a species and as multiple nations over the next few years. What this means, this mindset of constantly operating through disruption, is that the need to be able to take on and trade off risk has never been greater, and the need to do it quickly and effectively has never been greater. You look at some of the early days of the pandemic, and two risks went straight to the top of the list for every organisation. One, safety for staff, for employees, for customers. Two, business continuity. And what that meant is, in the rush to get people working from home, security had to take a back seat. A lot of people working from home without things like two-factor authentication or VPNs, in the interest of just getting people up and running. People were taking their desktop PCs home with them on the train, just so that the business could keep operating. Now, thankfully, over time, that re-emerged, but that ability to make those decisions quickly is something that's going to remain as a factor for many, many years. We've also seen over the last few years of the pandemic that digital transformation has accelerated. So our consumption patterns have changed. We can switch between online and hybrid work life very, very quickly. But that also means that cyber and supply chains have been absolutely critical enablers of our resilience and of our ability to digitally transform, but they've also become an increasing threat. That increasing digital footprint is an increasing attack footprint. And with more and more services going out to third parties, there's an inherent trust that needs to be in that supply chain that, the statistics from the Ponemon Institute over the last few years show are often a cause for compromise. On top of this, there's almost an endless amount of data that is available to help us build our picture of risk, but really how you harness it is probably really the key question, how you connect in that data, those insights to help you understand your risk position. But while we're operating now in 2022,
the 1990s called, and they want their risk assessment back. So despite significant advances in almost every industry over the last 30 years, the management of cybersecurity and information security risk in particular is still living in the 1990s. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we progress through this session. And more to the point, we're going to talk a little bit about what Archer and Axenic are doing about it. Over to you, Sam.
So you mentioned the 1990s there, and in addition to a lot of organisations looking at their Y2K assessments, that period was also a pretty busy time for security and compliance practitioners starting to conduct a lot more IT risk and IT compliance reviews, more systems popping up online, the dot-com boom and then crash, but also these little things called data breaches started becoming a little bit more well known, and with that would follow a lot of the major mandates. But how were the assessments typically being done back then? Of course, it was things like pen and paper, things like Excel and Word. It was around about this time, actually, that there was a gentleman in a place called Overland Park in Kansas. His name was John. He was actually running a very successful practice doing these assessments for the Big Four advisory firm that he worked at on behalf of their customers. They'd come in, they'd perform their assessments, they'd issue their reports, drop down, the big stack of paperwork on the table at the end of it. Lots of red lights, amber lights, and green lights highlighting what they found during their assessment. Customer would say thank you, shake their hand. They'd come back 12 months later to do another review. And what did they find? Well, nothing had actually changed. Maybe some of the old red ones that were found last year had disappeared, but they'd been replaced with new red ones this time around. Now, for John, as someone that was really passionate about actually trying to help drive real improvements in cybersecurity for his customers, he had to ask the question of what value was his team really providing? If they're just there to find issues and their customers aren't actually improving the situation or moving their security agenda and their security maturity forward, are they really helping? That was the first question he asked. The next question he asked was, is there a role for technology to play in actually helping making a bit of a difference here? And it was around about 2000 that John decided to actually start a little company called Archer, a company that I'm very happy to represent today.
So it's worth noting that security consulting firms like Axenic and others aren't actually helping with the situation at the moment. So we're perpetuating sort of point-in-time snapshots in the way that we engage our customers. As Sam mentioned, it's really typical for here's a risk assessment report, here's your static report, here's an audit. But it's really hard to actually extract good risk-based information out of that. And in particular, the rapid attrition of value of those deliverables. And so as you're handing over a static audit report, for instance, it's of value today because it gives our customers a good take on where they are today. Tomorrow, less value. 3 months, very limited value whatsoever, and within 12 months, we have to repeat it. And so if we take this across dozens or hundreds or sometimes thousands of static documents, it becomes untenable to help our customers manage risk. And so from the challenge is seeing the big picture. So seeing aggregated risk management across siloed systems is challenging to manage. This is not helped by, like if we take, for example, some of our government agencies, take a very project CapEx-led view to security. And so that tends to be one system at a time, and retrospectively trying to glue this all these systems together in a risk posture is actually really hard to do. The same applies for commercial businesses undertaking predominantly technology-focused risk management and risk assessments. And when we look at compliance standards like ISO 27001 or PCI compliance, quite often we find that these initiatives are stood up in isolation, and for some of our larger customers who are doing both, they're running as separate and parallel initiatives. Imagine the insanity of trying to aggregate the risk across dozens or hundreds of static assessments and documents. It boggles the mind.
Yeah, one additional issue that we commonly see as well is taking a compliance approach versus a risk management approach. So in a lot of cases, the risk, the certification and accreditation or the risk management process is approached as a tick box exercise, which of course diminishes the value. And as an industry, we're guilty of becoming more fixated on the mechanics of managing risks rather than answering the simple questions that the risk owners want to see. Are we providing the risk owner with enough information so that they can make an informed risk-based decision? That is the big question that I believe we are moving more away from. So we're more heading towards, well, what do I need to do to go live? How can I tick the box so that this security thing goes away?
So without a fundamental risk-based approach to cybersecurity, organizations can, and I suggest they are, wasting millions of dollars implementing security controls that don't necessarily protect what's important to the organization. The reference, you see the picture here is of the paper clips. We've got a saying in Axenic, if you protect your diamonds and your paper clips the same way, you'll soon have a lot more paper clips than diamonds. So on to the meat. What should we do about this? As both an industry and also Axenic and Archer, what can we do about this?
So I kind of had a vision, or actually a wish list, even without being at Axenic. Before that, when I was at client side, I had a vision of, well, these are the things that I wish security would look like. And I thought, well, probably in 5 years' time, the industry would realize that. So one of the things was I thought that business is really not interested in risk management. They're more interested in opportunities. Risk management is just a byproduct of the opportunity pursuit. They really want accurate and reliable information to save their time, effort, and money that they'd rather spend on opportunity. So that was the first thing I kind of had on my wish list for the security industry to achieve. It's also that everything now is interconnected and dependent and so complicated. So businesses need to see an enterprise-wide view and take that into consideration rather than looking at a single business unit or a system. And aggregation of information is no longer a nice-to-have thing. Also, let's face reality. Security is not the business. We're not at the core. We're a support function, albeit an important one, but still a support function. We commonly push the business away by our security KPIs and our techie lingo. Most business people struggle to relate to our maturity scales against some security standard. However, they commonly manage and understand risk. They do manage financial, people, health and safety, and other risks almost on a daily basis. Cybersecurity maturity has much better chances if it was measured by how well the business is managing their risks. It was also interesting to find out how dependent we are on the point-in-time assurance, given the dynamic world we live in at the moment. What we would call an effective control in managing risk today, maybe less effective, if not completely ineffective tomorrow. So how can we ask the business to make risk-based decisions when the assurance we're providing them is a point in time that ages quite quickly? I wish assurance was an infinite thing that gets updated constantly so that we can get the real picture all of the time. And since we mentioned the maturity assessment before and continuous assurance, I think business is also keen on tracking their investment. So basically, as security peeps, we go in and ask for a lot of money, and business, well, doesn't necessarily understand how our gadgets fit in the overall risk management thing. They just either trust us or want the noise to go away, so they give us the money, but it's very difficult for business to understand ROI on their spending. Finally, even with all the previous, cybersecurity risks are still enabled through technology, and a lot of controls to manage those risks are technical. A good outcome for the security peeps would be automating the link between outputs of those security tools that manage the security risk and input that into a risk posture that the business can relate to. And this will also, of course, serve the continuous assurance view.
All right, so as Ahmed pointed out, the mind the gap, and so it's the from a business or service owner's perspective of the world, they just want enough information to be able to make an informed business decision. What we as security professionals have got a little bit hung up on is the mechanics of the process to do that. So the SRA, the SRMP, the PIA. Pick your favorite acronym, and sort of not enough focus on the actual output of what we're trying to do for our key stakeholders. So the security goal is in the middle of that. It's answering questions for our key stakeholders in the businesses that we work with. What risks am I managing with? What, if anything, can I do about them? Who will do what and when? How are we progressing? And have we sufficiently balanced the risk and opportunity? That last one, I guess, is for Axenic is one of the key things that we go back to as a security consulting practice. Is it's not up to us to tell a customer what is risky and what is not. It's up to us to provide them enough information so they can take the business opportunity while maintaining a sensible risk posture. So we've painted a little bit of a picture of how Axenic and Archer see the future. How are we going to do that? So what do we do today to actually make that happen? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we actually have quite a good story to tell you on that. So Sam did a little bit of an origin story at the start. I'll give you Axenic's one. So Axenic has been around for around 13 years. We're a key provider in New Zealand government and also commercial. We have a very strong philosophy around risk-based rather than necessarily compliance-based security. And so for Axenic, the most important thing for us is that security is an enabler for the business or the agency. Security is not a device unto itself. It's a factor to help support business outcomes. So 2 years ago, after a few years of percolating the idea, it's probably been percolating for probably about 5 years, to be fair, we decided that we no longer wanted to perpetuate the problem of static reports. And so the Axenic board charged Ahmed at the time to come up with a better way. We knew as part of what we wanted to do as an aspirational vision that we needed a great governance, risk and compliance tool. And that was a key component of helping glue together our services. The problem that we found is that most governance, risk and compliance tools aren't actually that good at managing end-to-end risk, and they didn't gel well with with the way that Axenic wanted to approach cybersecurity. It's worth stating that Axenic is a professional services business. We will always be a professional services business, and no tool can ever replace the consulting expertise. But we did need a tool to help supplement our consulting expertise and to support our vision of where we're leading cybersecurity in New Zealand. So we looked at building a tool ourselves. Thank goodness we decided not to do that because we definitely didn't want to become a development shop. One of the things that makes Axenic a great security consultancy is that we stick to our knitting. We do governance, risk, and assurance, and that's all we do, and we do it really well. So we wanted to make sure we didn't divide our attention. We also looked at partnering with a local IT shop. or buying off the shelf. In the end, we chose to partner with market-leading integrated risk management platform Archer. The most important part of Archer for Axenic is the flexibility to configure the tool to be able to deliver our services in a risk-based approach to cybersecurity and not be forced into a delivery process that we knew wouldn't work for our New Zealand customers. So sorry, Ahmed.
So at the end, I think the key thing is a tool is just a tool. It relies on good information in to get good information out. And we've already established why traditional cybersecurity consulting has seen its day. I think the key thing and what makes our approach unique is that we're moving the cybersecurity industry forward by combining the power of our consulting expertise, our innovative intellectual property and the know-how, and then leveraging the best of breed IRM in the market. That's Archer.
Hey guys, we're really excited to be part of that equation, and thank you for the kudos there. And I'm certainly glad you didn't decide to build it in-house, because there's a lot that we bring to bear in these scenarios. But something fairly unique that we're talking about here, combining our best of breed technology with the tremendous wealth of experience that you have in addressing the needs of customers within the New Zealand market, focused on the right cybersecurity trends, threats, and risk. The role that Archer plays here is really in helping underpin, automate, and operationalize a lot of the activity that Axenic are able to do. Ahmed spoke about providing access to information, about aggregating risk insights, about being able to leverage data spread across disparate tools, and ultimately using that to enable better decision. We like to call that unleashing your risk management potential, but that's why Archer as a technology exists. Beyond being just a technology package, we also have some credentials I want to share very briefly, but we have been providing capability in this space for more than 20 years. We have more than 1,800 deployments of our solution globally, including several in New Zealand that we're very proud of. We're very proud of our leadership position from Gartner Magic Quadrant perspective, but more so than that, really for us, it's about being a risk solution designed for managing risk. There are a lot of solutions out there that get shoehorned and corralled into doing different purposes, but everything that we do with Archer is about providing the best particular solution for managing risk. We provide a wealth of different modules across different risk domains. And as Ahmed mentioned before, that flexibility and configurability is really key, because we know that no two organizations are the same in how they operate, certainly not the same in how they want to manage risk. So that flexibility is really key. And we also address that by providing deployments of the solution in the cloud, on-premise, and even several of our customers, including one in New Zealand, operating a hybrid model with some workloads in the cloud, some workloads on-premise. Here specifically in Asia Pacific, we've got more than 170 customers. We've got customers ranging in size from 50 employees all the way up to nearly 250,000 employees. And we're supported by a local team here within the Asia Pacific region of more than 100 staff. Now, the topic of today is really the future of cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is an area that we as Archer have been providing capability for many years, and it's really very closely aligned with that vision that Ahmed pointed out earlier. But being able to bring together all aspects of technology risk, be able to communicate with confidence with your stakeholders, and be able to take that risk-informed or risk-based or business-based approach to your risk decisions. More specifically, the types of capability that we provide with IT and security risk management, everything from understanding the types of assets you have, doing things like your CIA assessments so that you have your business prioritized or security or risk prioritized assets, being able to run workflows to accurately assess risk within your IT landscape, whether that's maybe onboarding a new system and doing your checklist activity to maybe doing your ongoing security attestations. There's also capabilities in here either to engage with humans or engage with other systems to pull together compliance data and understand your current level of risk as well as your current level of assurance. We also provide additional modules that help with managing security incidents and breaches, mitigating threats and vulnerabilities within your infrastructure, And also an emerging area where we're starting to see a lot of demand is in not just assessing risk in terms of things like high, medium, and low, but actually enabling a true dollars and cents conversation through quantification, modeling, and simulation. Next slide, if you don't mind, Terry. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, while we've been delivering IT and security capabilities for our customers for many, many years, as I mentioned, we address multiple domains of risk. Here in this conversation has been very focused on how we can help when it comes to cybersecurity, but Archer is also a modular platform that can run additional workloads, whether it's part of your enterprise risk platform, whether it's part of your business resilience or operational resilience activities, whether it's around understanding risk in your supply chain and your third-party ecosystem, to even more recently to running an effective ESG program. But we have modules that help in dealing with all of these activities. All of this is underpinned by the smarts of our technology. So the ability to integrate data from multiple sources, the ability to connect with people through a variety of form factors, be able to connect with your vendors to gather information from them around their own cybersecurity, and then the ability to orchestrate those things through workflow, through risk appetites and risk thresholds to the right people at the right time when issues start to emerge.
I'd just like to jump in quickly here, Sam, and mention an analogy that I've been using for quite some time when talking about Archer versus the other tools even that are available in the market, given that I've gone through an extensive analysis to be able to decide which tool that we will use. Archer versus other tool is pretty much synonymous to a great fabric with a great tailor versus a ready-made suit. You might go and get a suit or a dress off the shelf. It might fit you, it might not. It will definitely not completely look the same on you as a good fabric that is handled by a good tailor. I think that's pretty much what Archer and Axenic are doing at the moment. We kind of believe that we're good tailors, and definitely Archer is an amazing fabric. That's why we can create something that fits you rather than you adapting to it, and something that grows and shrinks as you gain and lose weight. So that's pretty much the analogy that I commonly use with people when talking about Archer.
I love that.
All right. In terms of moving those into reality today, those wishes into reality today, we've managed to build using our own IP and using Archer capabilities, what will give us risk management activities in silos versus good business decisions making basically based on risks, controls, and various kinds of information that is enabled across an enterprise. This can also be extremely timely, because if you keep updating your assurance enough, then it will immediately reflect in your risk ratings. You can find out where you can put your investments, because you can see control priorities, the most common controls, the most common risks, and a raft of information basically is analyzed and displayed in dashboards, so business can make really timely decisions.
So anyone who's talked to me, just a quick reminder, if anyone's got questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll cover those shortly when we get to the Q&A. Anyone who's talked to me in the last 12, 18 months would have probably heard me utter the words continuous assurance at some point in the discussion. This is one of the key things that Axenic's moving all our customers to over the next couple of years. And I'll explain a little bit about that just to give you some context. And so if we take the government CNA, there's a set of security activities that transpired during the certification and accreditation, but it's not until you get to the audit and the CNA memo of actually you've got the information that you need in order to make a good business decision. The same with PCI compliance. Whoever this customer was, their ROC was successful, awesome. And so there's a set of activities to meet PCI compliance over the course of the year for our customers. There'll be a bunch of activities, but that our customer won't actually know how they've done until they get to that final audit, and they've got our QSA saying, yes, you've done well, here's your successful ROC, or no, these are the things that you need to work on. The same thing for ISO certification. It's not until you get to the internal audits before you get to ISO certified, or if you're doing a surveillance audit, that you actually understand where you are in the process, how well you're doing. And so it's you kind of hope like hell that you're doing the right stuff and doing a good job, but you don't really know until you get to the end goal. And so that's what the continuous assurance is about. So continuous assurance is about continually checking in, doing that check there and then. If it's good to go, then that compliance is then met. And so if I give you a quick practical example so that you can sort of link it back to reality, for our PCI continuous assurance work that we do, we get our customers to upload their compliance evidence through Archer, not at the when they do the ROC, but as they go. And so as something's ready, they'll upload it. That'll be checked by the internal ISA or the project manager. Yep, good to go. That'll be uplifted to our QSA, who will have a look at it and go, yep, that's good. That meets your compliance requirements for that thing. And we don't need, so if for instance it's something like a security policy, then we don't need to check that again unless it changes. And so then that compliance is met. And so the organisation has a really good view over time of how they're achieving their risk reduction and increase in compliance.
It is also worth noting that if you miss something throughout the way, instead of finding that out at the end, just before, for example, in PCI, just before your ROC is issued, and you know, well, PCI doesn't have a 99.9% compliance. It's binary. Either you are or you're not. So instead of finding that at the end and not being able to remediate it until you get a non-compliance report, you pretty much get that notification as you go if you missed something, so that you can remediate it and end up with pretty much a guaranteed successful ROC at the end if you've met all of the requirement and remediated anything that was missing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think most executives that are engaging for these sort of assessments don't want the surprise of the last day before the compliance deadline that they're not going to make it, right? So yeah, the role of technology here really to provide that engagement throughout, whether it's the calendar year or the 3-year cycle, whatever you're working on for your compliance, I think is absolutely huge in just avoiding that hockey stick of activity that often needs to happen for a compliance deadline, and also just removing that very static nature of maybe an annual report or a quarterly report. Like if you've got that ongoing engagement, that ongoing connect, I think the level of confidence and the level of assurance that your organisation is heading in the right direction can be huge. As part of continuous monitoring and continuous assurance, I think there's obviously a huge role for people to play in that. So whether it's your own staff or obviously the wonderful consultants from Axenic and the advice and guidance that they can provide along the way. But also there's a lot of data that could be harvested and leveraged as part of this to help paint that broader picture of your risk or your current compliance levels. So with Archer, we actually have a vast number, this is just a very small sample here, vast number of pre-built integrations available with many industry-leading security solutions to help bring some of that data to life and connect it in with the broader security picture that you have. But we also take a flexible approach to integration as well. So maybe you've got another system that we don't natively support. Well, if it's got an API, we can connect Maybe it's something you've built in-house. Well, if it can expose data or drop a file every now and again, we can connect. So a lot of opportunity there to not just have those regular touch points of engagement at a human level, but those micro touch points over time through a system level.
But this was something that was really important to Axenic as we were looking at tool sets, and because one of the things that we were trying to achieve with implementing a tool as part of our consulting was to reduce the burden on our consultants and reduce the burden on our customers. And a large part of that is automating as much as possible. And so taking out the mundane activities of trying to track and measure cybersecurity and automating that as much as possible.
All right, so again, the holistic management of risks and moving from the siloed risk and assurance to basically something that allows you to see insights into what common risks, controls, other risk management activities that you have across the organization. How do you do this in a way that reduces the effort and saves money and shifts the focus from a majority of a good amount of investment, I would say, in the assessment and another good amount of investment in the assurance, focuses more the investments into the actual risk management. So the view is also impossible to provide that kind of view if you don't have the consolidation across multiple systems and aggregation of those risks and assurance reports so that they can provide an enterprise view. Again, one of the things that we've managed to implement with Archer was exactly that.
And one other point on that is for our government customers watching the certification and accreditation. So the aggregation of potentially hundreds of CNAs, which are currently trapped in static documents, and so our managed CNA offering with amalgamating that's a really key for where we see government customers moving over the next 5 years. The same with our commercial customers. And lastly, before we move into Q&A, the cybersecurity investment traceability, and so measuring the impact of security spend. And so I guess it's fair to say that we talked about in the start of the presentation, there's a lot of security implementation stuff going on, and there's a lot of organisations that we work with, especially that have had someone come in, they've done an audit against a standard, pick your favourite standard, and then out of that comes a whole set of security controls to go and do, which sometimes forms multi-million-dollar programs. The thing that's missing there for us is that it's the traceability back to how it benefits the organisation. And so by taking a risk-based view to this and then being able to link back the implementation of security controls, how that positively impacts risk. And so as those controls are remediated, that have been identified, that shows either an increase of compliance if you're working towards something like PCI or ISO certification, and also a reduction in risk. And so for every dollar an organisation spends on security, that should be reflected in business outcomes. So what is the return on that investment? So with that, I'll just, Ahmed, Sam, is there anything else that you want to add to that before we move to the Q&A?
Just one final point, Terry, Ahmed, I'm really, really excited to be able to lift the lid on this offering here. I think it's something that's totally unique, and I think will truly help in that vision and that objective that I mentioned before of actually driving real improvements, real progress, and fewer surprises in your cybersecurity initiatives.
Thanks, Sam. I just think that I would personally wish that I had the access to those tools when I was working on the client side, but I'm still glad that I have access to those from the consulting side, so that we can, one, save our consultants the mundane tasks, get them to focus where they offer more value, but also save our customers the money and the effort and provide them with a better view that serves their business at the end of the day.
Thanks, Gus. All right, with that, that's the conclusion of our presentation. We have Michael busy manning the chat window at the moment. Feel free to ask any questions. Really happy to get your own feedback, get your thoughts, get your arguments or your debates if you disagree. Right. Feel free to ask any questions. Just give you a few moments to ask them. Cool. A good question from Mark. What kind of governance reporting is available? Is it just a dashboard view? Dan, can I get you to speak to that?
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, in addition to being able to look at all the pretty traffic lights and heat maps and all those sorts of things on dashboards, you can actually get down into the detail. I guess one very specific example of that would be, we spoke about the report of compliance for PCI. So that's actually one of the standard reports that we have with our PCI module, where you can go through and collect all your artifacts, and the system will actually pre-populate. I won't say a fully complete, but it's a largely populated report of compliance there. On top of that, a range of sort of tabular and structured reports there to help provide either to your executives or to your internal stakeholders, or maybe as artifacts along the way just before a system goes live, that you've met the stage gates you need to go live, but a variety that are available there.
I'd just like to add that from a governance perspective as well, there are preset sets of tasks, especially for something like the PCI, for example. We know that you need to review your firewall rules every 6 months. We know that you need to review access periodically, and so on and so forth. So those tasks are pre-configured already and can get assigned to the relevant parties, groups or users that are supposed to be doing them. And they get this task assignment either through Archer task dashboard, or get those task assignments through your favorite system. Again, we said anything that has an API, Archer can work with. So basically, you can get those tickets assigned to the relevant parties, and then once they complete them, we can pull back that information, including the artifacts and evidence they provide for completing those tasks, and then populate the relevant PCI controls in Archer, which again facilitates, with the continuous assurance, facilitates your assurance journey, so that at the end of the day, you get a QSA to check that there and then, rather than checking all instances of firewall review at the end, just before you rock.
Excellent, thank you. And we've got a question from Sam. Good to see you, Sam. And the question: how will this be used as part of Axenic offerings? Awesome question, thank you. So I've already mentioned and Oakman just did there as well with the PCI continuous assurance. So that's one example of helping our customers maintain assurance and sort of see that curve of getting ready for PCI compliance over time. We're about to rolling out the government CNA stuff. That's happening at the moment. Axenic is going to be rolling out Archer for all of our delivery capabilities. So over the coming 6 months, everything that we do, all the consulting gigs that we do will be done through Archer. the government CNA is quite an interesting one. So we do all of the work directly in Archer, so no more manual risk mapping and tables for our consultants. They work directly in the Archer tool. It generates the risk assessment directly into dashboards. When we come to doing the audit gets spread out to the people who look after those controls. They submit the evidence, and that gets uploaded directly to our consultants, to our auditors, to be able to review those. And so it's a lot more efficient process. But that's good for one engagement. But when we look at 5, 10, dozen, 100 of those types of engagements, then starting to aggregate all of that information up. And so we're looking at great reuse across the enterprise. So for all our large customers, we're looking at the first port of call is doing an enterprise controls catalog. And so that is a common set of security capabilities that all subsequent projects can use. And so this is all part of the continuous assurance process.
Yep, I'd like to add to that even if the client at the end of the day ends up wanting a Word report or a PDF report as they're used to, we still have the option of exporting the content in Archer and spitting out the Word or PDF document and sharing that with the customers. So that's pretty easy to do at the end of the day. Patrick, I can see, well, basically the continuous monitoring will always depend on the security controls. So basically it's because we're looking at a risk-based approach here and a risk view that enables a set of risk-based decisions. It's all about managing risks. So if you have data feeds that are coming from an incident ticketing system that feeds into the risk management, we can integrate that. If you're looking at data feeds that are coming from your vulnerability management solution, we can feed that into Archer. And if you're looking at whether you meet even your process-related controls, such as have you reviewed the relevant policies, then definitely, again, that can be either the task is created into Archer and then basically assigned to the relevant party, either through Archer directly or through the integration with the favorite organization ticketing system. In terms of the based assessments, yes, we provide those for PCI, ISO 27001, NZISM, and even a hygiene control check. So we do have a module there for the basic security controls if you want to just do a quick gap analysis to understand where a certain organization stands from a hygiene perspective. We do have that offered through Archer. Clients would be able to see their profile through Archer, or again, get just the same old static documents that they used to get, but definitely our consultants will be doing the work in Archer rather than in Word and Excel files.
We think it's going to take a little while for some of our customers to catch up to the process, and so we were very conscious that we still need to be able to deliver static reports if that's what our customers need, and we respect that. We will be working with those customers to sort of move them forward into a more continuous assurance approach. So a question from Mailer, will the Archer implementation be applied to historical assessments and audits? Yep. So especially when you're looking at the using this process, especially continuous assurance, it needs information in order to provide quality outputs. We're just about to onboard a large customer at the moment. We'll be importing about 40 risk and assurance engagements we've done for them. The ones that are relevant, and sort of helping build that out as part of implementing a controls catalog for them. And so by the time that's done, that customer's already got a great view of how risk and assurance is done in that organisation, and then we swap into doing the continuous assurance approach across all future work. So yeah, that great question. Thank you for that.
The same thing, by the way, applies to ISMS. So we've done already internal audits, for example, for one of our clients recently. That intends to get us to do those internal audits for them against ISO 27001 on a regular basis, so they get those artifacts and can see a view of how this is their control remediations and improvement plans are progressing. Same thing for PCI. Yes, we import previous PCI ROCs that we've done. If not, well, new ROCs are going to be done on Archer anyway. So that evidence is there, and you can definitely get a view.
Cool, thank you. The next question from Kingfisher Property. I think it's Brian Mine, that alias. Hi, Brian. Great analogy. Top pains having great Taylor solves, and how's it measured in ROI? Excellent question. So I think the best way to respond to this is that information security using this approach should become more cost effective over time. So especially when we look at reuse. And so at the moment, if we look back on customer engagements over the last 5 years, we'll come in, we'll do a risk and assurance on a solution or a system, and then they'll say, oh, by the way, we've got another one. Can you come and do risk and assurance on this one? So we'll do that, and we'll do that, and we do this great point-in-time solution, great point-in-time risk and assurance to help make a decision on that system, but then that's not ultimately reusable for the next system and the next system. And so by using this approach, using Archer, using the continuous assurance, and sort of layering that value over time, then the next project that comes along gets to consume the weight of the kind of the risk management and the assurance from previous work. And so it should be cheaper for that project or that business owner to get confirmation of the risk that they're managing as part of that. And so the more you do this, the sort of the better the ROI gets.
Wait on Terry, I'll take Steve's question.
Quickly, I was going to add in another point to that, and just to continue the tailoring analogy, buying off the rack. While it might fit okay today, will it fit tomorrow? I guess that's the question. So we know that compliance requirements change, business requirements change. So that flexibility is really key to the continuous fit as well as the continuous assurance.
Thanks, Sam. Steve, to answer your question, right now, if you get any QSA to do your ROC, they will produce a Word document or a PDF document of that. We'll produce that anyway, whether we do it in Archer or not. But on top of that, everything that sits in Archer can be exported into CSV files, basically, and the relevant attachments can also be exported. So you'll end up getting all the information. So you can really do that, and it applies to PCI, ISO, whatever. All historical data about a certain client can be exported out of Archer easily.
Yeah, I think it's the and it's a vendor exit strategy is definitely a risk that needs to be managed, and it's you'll probably find that in our own risk assessments, and so being able to provide, because that information belongs to you as an organisation, and so being able to export that. And so if you if you use this process for a while, decide that it's not for you, great, we can export your data. The worst case scenario is you're given those audit reports, and so you have access to all that data because it is your data.
Yeah, just a final note regarding the, if I misunderstood your question, Steve, please let me know. But I think what you meant by the Archer implementation tendency with you, or do you start again with a new company? So basically, if I understand this correctly, you're asking, can I just get the data and get an Archer instance and just use it straight away? Well, theoretically, you can. Practically, we've customized the solution so that it works. So again, that's the great fabric, great tailor side of the word. So as tailors, we've tailored Archer to streamline this process massively and make it basically sound exactly as what we say. Traditionally, Archer is used, has been used, and is still used for organizations to use those internally. We are the first services company to use Archer to offer the services to other people. So that's where our customization has a role to play.
All right, I noticed we've got a couple of minutes left. Is there any further questions before we sign off and release you back into the wild? Okay, so you've got a few moments to submit any last minute questions if you like. If you'd like to book an appointment with Axenic to talk about anything that's come up in this presentation, feel free to send an email to future@axenic.co.nz. Ahmed and myself, and hopefully Sam, if we can twist his arm, we'll be doing some roadshows over the next few months, and so we'll be doing in-person catch-ups, which are great. And so if you'd like to book to come and see one of those roadshows, ping us a note at roadshow@axenic.co.nz. I'd really like to thank Sam for joining us today. It's been awesome having you, and thank you, Ahmed, as well.
Thank you all. Thank you both.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thanks, everybody. Take care. And yeah, I'll definitely see you soon. I'll take you up on that for sure, Terry.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you attending today.